Roll call.
Commissioner Barton,
Present.
Commissioner Kroll,
Present.
Commissioner Coppinger,
Present?
Attorney Phelan,
Present.
Steve Haber.
Okay, we have 3 one-day licenses. We'll hold off on the minutes of our December 10th meeting for the next meeting. So we have 3 one-day licenses. Lynn Museum for Tuesday, February 25th, for reception for the new North Shore Community College president. A one-day license for St. Pius for Saturday, March 22nd, for a wine tasting auction fundraiser. And a one-day license for CM Bistro for Thursday, February 13th, for their first anniversary.
I'll move the meeting to fall for we waive the museum and the St. Paul's.
The only question I might have is 159 Central, as long as it's closed to the public, is that a restaurant?
I think it is.
159 Central?
Yeah. CM Bistro.
Yeah, that's the, right over here.
It's a restaurant?
Yep.
Yeah, I think that should just be noted, that it's not gonna have a liquor license for an hour.
So what do you say, just not a one day for that one?
No, they can have one day, but the doors should not be open to the public for that hour, for the celebration.
Okay.
I don't know.
Yeah. That means we usually do something like this.
It sounds like it was a private party, which is great.
That's what it sounds like.
Right, like 1 year anniversary.
It's only for an hour.
I just shouldn't, okay, it's fine, whatever you wanna do.
No, it's not, I don't think it's a happy hour.
All right, I'll second.
All in favor? Aye. Okay, and then we have a change of license, Lupita Restaurant. Anyone here from Lupita?
Yes. Yeah, I don't see him here. I don't see Erasmo here yet.
All right.
Okay?
Put it on hold to the end of the meeting. Okay, then we'll move on and go for a transfer of license to Burrish Convenience Store.
I got that. Can we get her?
Yes. Yeah. He wants to be up front about it.
Just came in.
Right here. Yeah.
We need trim. They go them down, what is that? Okay.
Hi. For what?
This is Trinidad, who owns Henry's Variety Inn from Boston. You may recognize Trin and the mother and father. We have the Western Avenue Market, the intersection of Chatham and Western. Trin also is on the convenience store in the mall, and has obviously been a manager and attorney Miles is here. He represents one of the brothers. So,
I saw one of them.
yeah, it could well be. This is a convenience store that doesn't sell any food for takeout other than packaged food. So this is a convenience store that's a neighborhood grocery that fits within the definition of the zone. And with respect to the experience the twins had, both working with the parents and running the store in Malden, I think she's certainly well suited and qualified. She owns the building at 601 Boston Street.
Sorry, across the street from the Little River Inn. And then the inside.
Oh, okay. All right. Thank you. You want Anyone have any questions?
I have no problem with the transfer. I just seen this letter from council board.
I gave notice to the churches and the schools, and I don't know if there's anybody here from those church or school, but I don't think they're in opposition. I have to return receipts from Sacred Heart School and from the,
We just received that.
We just got this.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't have any information about the church. Attorney Myhouse asked me about that, and so did she. And I said to her, having been married in Sacred Heart Church, that I didn't believe it was a tenet of the Catholic faith that to oppose the sale of that. But we did give them notice.
And I know we've been anxious to do something, so, you know, I myself.
No, I don't either. Fine.
I just wish this was a little clearer and to the council's intention on this.
I don't know.
Well, it's gotta go before the.
I don't think so.
No.
No, it doesn't, so it kind of leaves it to us.
We'll just have it on record that there was one opposition, but
I mean, you can, I don't see it.
Dick, if we.
I don't know if there's anybody here
For
from the
anyone in
church.
opposition, I think if you do that, then, we'll,
is there anyone here in opposition of Henry's Market getting this license? There are none, then I guess I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion that we approve the transfer license.
I'll second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Thank you.
I see Rasmus is around, but you want to put him at the end, that's fine with me, if you see mine, repeat it.
All right, he's here, let's go. Since you're up here.
Okay.
Thank you.
We were here in 2010 with Erasmo and his wife Francesca. This is a success story. These people came to Salvador
Bless you.
in 1991. They met there and got married there. I'm telling you a life story. They came to Lynn in 2000. They opened a very successful taco place on the corner of but essentially it's a lunch business, and if you recall, when we came before you, they wanted and did ultimately get a beer and wine license. Now, we went to the city council and made a request that that location that had been previously approved for the sale of beer and wine now be approved for the sale of all alcohol. The council unanimously voted for it. As you probably know, I don't think there's been a single incident since they've run the restaurant on Monroe Street with the beer and wine license. Both tip certified. I mean, we've been doing this long enough that now his children are like in the 20s. I think one of them's back there. It's a family business, and they certainly work hard. They've maintained both locations on Monroe Street. And there are other tacos, Lapitas, and other places. And in fact, they have business interests in the city of Revere. So I think they're certainly well suited, and based on their prior record with respect to the beer and wine license, I would hope that you act favorably on the request to have all alcohol. I know that at the time, I mean, I've actually, I'm not a big fan of Mexican food, I hate to admit it, but I've been in there and I know that beer is helpful, let me just put it that way. And so they get requests from individuals, and I would say this, my experience is I go in, I mean, there are not, first of all, there aren't that many off tables. I think that the service of wine now is from that counter up there, where, yeah, so it's table service. So you have to be seated and eating food. So this is a restaurant.
problem, sounds great.
Entertain a motion?
Yeah, we change the license to, allow them that.
Second. All in favor?
Thank you for taking.
Thank you very much. You're welcome. Yeah, there's one in Gloucester, yeah. All right, then we have a transfer of a license, Lo Nuestro Cafe. It's a number.
This is Dan Strain. He is the post manager, president of the new entity. I think he, Mr. Sedan from his past here. This is John Brown, who, by the way, makes, was it Chelsea? He manufactures.
Chelsea Firework and hot sauce.
Yeah, I said to him, I know it's the Chelsea buses, but I said, isn't there a name of it? It's called Chelsea's Wicked, or Fire Wicked.
Chelsea Firework and hot sauce.
Right. These are the principles of the new entity. Dan has been a manager in 2 or 3 other establishments that we've listed here. He's well versed. Mr. Sedano has told me he's put 40 years in the business. He wants to retire and go home. So he financed the transaction. These people, if you approve them, would be operating it, as I say, Dan has been at least in 2 or 3 other places a manager and has experience. And in terms of the entity, everybody that's standing up here, they have an interest in having it operate properly. You didn't bring any hot sauce.
I didn't want to bribe
My brother's still talking about the bottle you brought to my office. It's supposed to be, he said you told him was the hottest in the world.
No, I didn't say that. That's tasty.
All right, okay.
Anybody have any questions?
Just a comment,
Comment?
we have several other items before us regarding the current owner of the establishment that I, at least in my opinion, should be resolved prior to any transfer.
Well, I think that the source of the problems in the past was when Mr. Sedano was not present because he was ill. He had to make a choice about going forward, and his choice was, I think I had represented to you, that either we would change the manager or change the entity, or do both. And certainly, we've done that, okay? And as far as the reports that you have, 2 or 3 of those reports relate to a specific individual and their driving offenses and immigration offenses that are not directly related to the operation at the state.
I agree that the changes are good, but just my point is that this gentleman goes forward, if he decides to apply somewhere else, there may be items in here that should
I didn't hear the last
discipline.
part. He decides to apply somewhere else?
The city or town or the Commonwealth.
Oh, that's different, because there's a restriction about him being in business in the agreement that we have.
Well, my point is, he makes out the application somewhere else, have you ever been the victim of a suspension or revocation? No, he goes free and clear.
I see you have it here.
I'm not happy with that's the way that would go forward. Maybe we come to some kind of an agreement on all of this stuff, but I don't think it should go forward without resolving this before us, prior to the transfer. And I think the transfer is a good thing. I'll support it, but I think this gentleman's record's gotta be dealt with prior to the transfer.
But I think it's on later in the evening.
It is.
There's more reports the next month.
Yeah, we have a couple of them. I don't even want to take it out of order. Take it out of order and deal with snowstorms first.
What are we gonna do next month?
I'm gonna talk to the lieutenant.
I've only seen the reports that were noticed for January 6th.
I think the big one that would be on Route 7 there, perhaps.
Gun shops the next one. I'm not gonna show you the circumstances for it, but
Right. Yes, that's what
Do you
I
want
was
to go
hoping
over
you'd do.
the stuff just for next month?
First, I just need a motion that we take it out of order and let someone take over. Okay.
reverse it here.
We'll go here and let's not stuff. Need a second? All in favor? Okay. So let's do that. Just so that we can get this.
My memory is, I recall, I bought this house, so hopefully, it was originally scheduled October or November. I sent a letter to you.
And you said, yep.
And said that, Mercedes was ill, and I couldn't be there. And then we put it on, I think, in November. And at that time, I think we did discuss these, and the discussion was about the regulation that governed cover charges, whether you could serve more than one drink, whether you could serve in a carafe.
Correct.
I think at that time, I'll go back and look at my notes, I think I acknowledged that, yeah, I'm looking at my notes, that there were no tickets, so that was one of the allegations that is correct. There was another question, and this was what happened at the close of the business, and what people were doing inside. And that they all came out at the same time around 1:30, and that was the staff that was inside, the waitresses who the bartender and the manager at the time walked out to their cars. I think I gave you a copy of the ABCC's regulations with respect to both cover charges, and under 204 4.03F, it says that no one can sell, offer to sell, or deliver malt beverages or mixed drinks by the pitcher except to two or more persons at the time. Then I think Attorney Phelan was going to look up about food, and I think it's because it said, with respect to the next regulation, which is an exception to the prohibition of certain practices, it says, shall prohibit licensees from including a drink as a part of a meal package. It says no regulation shall prohibit the sale of wine by the bottle or craft when sold with meals, more than one person, or those who are licensed package stores that have a wine tasting or whatever, or a hotel that has room service. So the question was with respect to service. I think I gave you pictures at the time of the buffet, and that I believe that was part of the package that people you can give away food. You can have at the bar free hors d'oeuvres, cocktail peanuts, whatever. And the question is whether there was service to groups, and if there were, then it's not a prohibited practice. The after hours didn't involve customers, it involved the staff who came out. And I don't know that the police entered after 1 o'clock. I don't dispute what they say they observed, but I don't know that they observed what was in the carafe. Then I remember the lieutenant saying about the A and B, that it was a domestic between a boyfriend-girlfriend, I think, kind of situation, which did occur outside the bar. It was really not directly related to the activities in the bar. And then my last recollection is that the offenses that were subsequently listed, which were on, I think, for December, but were noticed on December the 3rd for the December 7th meeting, so I talked with Attorney Phelan about, because that wasn't sufficient notice, we would take them up subsequently. Those involve one individual who, I think they call it a detainer or whatever, was in the custody of the immigration. And this individual apparently had more than one, had an alias, at least more than one ID, but I think what I told you at that time, we have the surveillance film of him being arrested before he opens the door and goes in the bar. So, if he's driving unregistered, if he's here illegally, that's being dealt with. I think, in fact, the criminal case is on for Friday in the Lynn District Court as to that individual. I think the immigration matters may well have been resolved, but I think I told you at that time, and I say again, that it was misplaced and improper delegation in terms of when he was ill, but he dealt with a company of which this individual was employed, and he dealt with them under the name he was given. So the motor vehicle things, I think, are absolutely unrelated to the car. The A and B, the lieutenant can speak to, and the report speaks to. And then with respect to I acknowledged on the cover charge, prohibited liquor practices, I acknowledged and admitted that there were not tickets. I think I got down that there was an allegation about you have to have a sign, and I wrote down true, that they didn't have the sign. And then I wrote down, when it said tickets, it's true, they didn't have tickets. So those are acknowledged. But then the rest of it really relates to what happened after they came in and saw that, and then they waited outside, and then people didn't leave promptly at 1 o'clock. But the people who were inside, and I think we accounted for the number of them, they were staff persons, either the waitresses, the bartender, or the manager who's there. So that to me is the event that we dealt with before.
Who was the manager at that time?
This individual was working for a management company that he had hired while he was ill.
Is this Sanchez?
Excuse me?
Is this Sanchez?
Correct. Well, that's a name. I think there are other names that ultimately the police determined or uncovered.
But we weren't notified
That, of what?
that there was a new manager.
It wasn't a new manager. It was a management company. He was ill. I sent you a letter that said he was unable to attend a meeting because he was ill.
Right.
Then I appeared with him and said that he has to make a choice, but he had made a choice, and I gave you the name of the company, I think, that he dealt with. And he's the president of the corporation, and he's the manager of record. And
But this other gentleman, McGill,
Is it-
Sanchez, has been portraying himself as being.
that may be. He's also been portraying himself as an American citizen and having 2 other names.
He was the acting manager for at least 6 months.
Yeah.
And his girlfriend said that they were friends with Saddam.
Well, again, I'm only going by what's in the report, okay? And I don't know what's going on.
So I don't know
if he's
about the
got it.
management company, but they
But
said they were friends.
we do have it on record that this gentleman was portraying himself as the manager of.
And that he was in fact
Las
that
Nostras.
name,
And
and
he
that
was
in fact he was a
purchasing,
citizen.
and he was purchasing liquor illegally.
He was purchasing liquor.
Yeah, yep, we have him here for purchasing a bottle of Ciroc for $130. There was a receipt found on this person.
When he was arrested, he had a receipt on him for.
Yeah, but he wasn't even in the bar when he was arrested.
Those were.
He was outside the bar.
Those
Those are
were
receipts from the bar from the night
from the
prior.
night before, meaning he sold a bottle to someone in there for
November
$130.
22nd, yeah.
It was bottle
Which
service,
basically
yeah.
means he
Yeah.
paid no attention
To the warning that he got. back
not
in
being allowed to sell bottles of alcohol
September.
Exactly, and he had been warned about it.
several
2
times.
months later, he did the same thing again.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why these.
Well, do we have the receipt? I've never seen the receipt.
We have the receipt. I think we do have the receipt, copy of the receipt at least.
But I don't know whether it's a receipt from buying from a package store, is that what?
No, it's a receipt from the bar. Someone went in there,
Purchase.
spent the night, and it's a receipt of their purchases for the evening. It's got the waitress's name and everything else on it, and they bought a bottle for $130.
I didn't see the receipt.
Well, we have the receipt if you'd like to see it.
I didn't say I wanted to see it, I said I hadn't seen it. And again, he was arrested for motor vehicle offenses outside the bar.
This is the manager that's been working for Sedani for 6 months prior.
Well, again, I don't know
Whether he
where
was
the
arrested
6
outside or
6
not.
months comes
He
from.
certainly was, he's there since his 40.
4 months. Yeah, Mr. Sedani was telling
The
me
officers have seen him
August,
as.
He's been there
September,
for,
October.
he's been there before that.
Well, do we have evidence of
Did he?
before August?
Yes.
I mean, just the
I
fact
saw-
that he's
I saw
admitting
him.
that it's 4 months, and with us not being notified about it, this shouldn't have taken place. That's the bottom line there.
Mr. Sedani is the president of the corporation, he's the manager. He becomes ill. he hires a company to operate while he's ill.
And again, we should.
He doesn't know whether he's
notify.
gonna be ill for a month, 2 months, but he enters into an agreement with somebody who said
When,
he was
when,
experienced.
when we were down there with immigration, we took that guy out of there.
Excuse me?
When we were down there with immigration and took that guy out of there, his girlfriend then took over the management of the company.
Again, I don't know.
Mr. Sanchez's girl?
Yes. So I don't even know where they got a management company where she would take over the business then.
He always portrayed himself as the manager. Anytime he dealt with him, he said, I'm the manager.
And he also portrayed himself under 3 different names, didn't he?
Right, he also said he was planning on purchasing the place with someone out of Chelsea.
Again, those are statements of somebody that you arrested, who's no longer associated with the place, who you charge, the immigration charges, they don't know who he is.
But this is
He's
the guy
got
that
2 or
was
3
running the
names.
bar in the city.
Excuse me?
This was the guy that was running the bar in the city.
Well, again, this
By
individual.
your own admission, Council Vitale, this man went through a management company and secured Sanchez for his assistance. Mr. Sanchez was there for quite a time. The officer submitted a report after Mr. Sanchez was arrested outside. No, I granted, that doesn't necessarily have anything to do with the bar, but it clearly, the report that the officer wrote, that's been submitted here in front of the board, shows that the officer during that arrest found evidence directly on Sanchez that was from the bar that shows that there was illegal purchases of alcohol against the rules of the ABCC and this
Well,
board.
again, it's,
It's certainly here for you to discuss, Counselor,
Well,
but it's
again,
here,
I don't know.
the evidence is here. It's here in the
even if
report.
I assume that the receipt reflects a purchase, tell me
This
why.
report is an accurate police report, and it reflects that receipt is an evidence.
Yeah.
That evidence can be
I
brought.
understand, it's an evidence of a sale. To whom?
It's in evidence here, secured and available for the board.
I understand.
and
Who
for
is
you
it a
to
sale
look
to?
at.
A patron.
It is clear.
What
it
was the
with-
patron's name?
I can tell you, if we bring these receipts forward, or copies of the receipts, they are bagged in such a way that all the receipts from the bar, that bar, and they reflect a sale of a bottle of alcohol for $130. Clearly, something not even worthy of discussion.
I don't know whether it was a sale.
Well,
To a single
we're
individual?
suggesting it was.
Well, suggesting
To the
may
board.
work, but I want to know whether it was a sale to a group of individuals, to one
You
individual.
can't sell a
or it was
bottle,
sale of
it
a
doesn't
single
matter if it was
bottle.
100 people. You
Right.
can't sell a bottle of alcohol.
And that's one point that you've been able to summarize, but the other ones, we don't find to be trivial violations. Staff can't be drinking in there after 1 o'clock. The tickets, the signs, those are clear violations.
I said that, about the
These
tickets
are
and signs.
compiling violations that have been ignored in front of this board, and nothing's been done.
Since
here
Mr.
to satisfy-
Sedano's been back, has there been a problem?
Well, there are stuff coming in next month.
Well,
and
again,
the
I haven't
chairperson-
seen that.
Well,
There was a shooting
Is he in
last
now?
week.
The chairperson asked me to summarize, and we're going over the old stuff. You've taken 20 minutes to summarize.
Well, I may take as long as I want.
As you should.
All right,
We'll move
so
forward.
with respect to the reports that haven't come before the board, they're not for its consideration now. My question was that somebody had a problem since Mr. Sedano's been back there? Since he's been well and returned?
Well, if that's a question, I'll make sure I look at these reports that are coming in, and look at the agenda.
Because I've inquired of him, like, before every weekend, is he there, what's going on? He tells me you people are
I
there all the
certainly
time.
stopped by and had conversation with him, and I'm not standing in front of the board, and I'm not saying that he hasn't been there. Indeed, he has been there, and every time I've come to speak with his staff or him, he's been available for me. I don't particularly have any violations with respect to the alcohol stuff. I do know we have new reports coming in that may or may not reflect on the bar and his management. Those are for the board and for you to look at and make a decision for. I'm willing to summarize them and give them to the board so they can be considered.
Well, he's here now, I mean, I haven't seen him, but if they involve him, it's
Here?
news for me.
I would just say that we've been more than accommodating to Mr. Sedai. Some of these reports are going back as far as September. This is now January, so we definitely have to deal with them now. The other two that are coming up, I would appreciate if the lieutenant would summarize what those two are and just lump them all together.
Yes, I'd be happy to. The one report that's from just a day after Christmas, December 26th, it was a disorderly conduct arrest. for a couple of individuals, minors, 20-year-olds, were arrested unrelated to unrelated to Lynn Wastrel. But during their arrest, they made statements to the officers that they were inside Lynn Wastrel drinking. And there was no way for us to investigate that and find out if that was accurate or not. Those statements were made to the officers and recorded that day in an informative official police report. Those reports, I believe, are here in the packets you probably have. The second one was from January 17th of this year. My officers and the regular patrol officers were working, and shortly after at closing time, just before 1 o'clock, I believe. Again, I'm summarizing because I was there. There was a report of shots fired outside of 54 State Street. The initial report even mentioned 7, 8 shots fired. The officers got there. The owner was here. His staff was there. The owner was there. His staff was there. The officers were able to stop people outside in the crowd and determine that it had occurred in the Shaw's parking lot. And they did recover evidence of 8 9mm shell pieces were recovered and secured, photographed and secured. I did speak with his staff. He said he called. It's clear that that activity wasn't a coincidence. It happened outside when there was a large number of people leaving, and they were getting into the cars and leaving, and somebody discharged a firearm. That's the summary of that one.
The report says somebody said they were grieving the loss of a friend. Do you know about that?
That officer who took that report must have been interviewed somebody who said that.
It was the male that was killed at Kerwin Circle. He had his wake earlier in the night. Bunch of them went to State Street.
The first report is an incident at Broad Street.
Yes.
The way that I see this whole thing now is that I do think, number one, the transfer is a good thing. I think this gentleman should be out of this business as soon as possible. That's hopefully the new people that are proposed to take over will do a much better job. I think the chairperson's correct. These reports go back a while. I think certainly between the Lynn Police and ourselves, if we chose to, we could make some very compelling arguments about problems that have been there. Been going on there for a while. It could probably hit you with a very strong suspension or revocation. That being said, that'll end up at the ABCC. It will drag this thing out for months. Who knows who'll win in the end?
But no one.
Who knows who'll win? But the bottom line is, I can't sit here and go along with a transfer where you get away scot-free with this, and you go to Salem, Chelsea, Boston, whatever, they see an application that says nothing on it about your prior problems. In good conscience, I don't think this board can do that. So we need to come up with some sort of an agreement about what's gonna go on your record as far as discipline goes. If that's not agreeable to you, that's fine. We can go forward and do whatever this board has to do. Maybe you need to talk to Attorney Vitale about that and decide what direction you wanna go in. If your point is, your intent is to transfer that license and get out of the business, which I think we all agree is a good thing, you might wanna get a little creative with the way you think about this and maybe come to a solution about it. Otherwise, we can both go forward, make our arguments here and there, and who knows where it'll end up. I don't know what my colleagues think about that.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
Well, I agree with the lieutenant that I have knowledge that he said at the outset, and then again tonight, that the cover charge one, he didn't dispute that.
Do you want to step out with your client for a little bit? And then
Yeah,
come back
because
in?
the other thing is that those two reports there, even though I just saw them now, I think they're, again, peripheral to what, my question was whether, since he got back there, what is his career? It's no question about prior to that. And the prior to that lumps a series of things. One, I think that A and B of the domestic, that's unrelated, I believe. I think there's a legitimate, as I understood it, question about whether you have to sell food or serve food, and then there was a question about sales by bottle. But if he wants to discuss it,
I think you
you know,
gotta
you can
decide, we could both.
No, you're here
brainstorm
tonight,
it
and he's here
so-
tonight, I'd like to resolve it tonight.
That's what I'm
Yeah,
hoping you.
but so let me give him a chance to think about it,
Yeah.
and then we'll come back.
All right,
Make a motion, we'll table, Mark, Attorney Vitale consult with his client.
Move on to the.
okay. Yeah. Okay, let's move on, and, since Sam's handling the new license, we'll hold off on that for a moment. You have a conference with JD Sports
That's
Spa?
foul play sports.
Foul play. Oh, it was JD's.
It was a previous net owner's name,
Right.
put his name
Yeah.
on it.
Oh, this is up here. This is all JD. Wait. Okay. Well, yes. And this is the new one coming. Okay. Okay, let's deal with the, okay, which one's this one? From October? Okay, okay, all right. The reason why we've asked you to come in is because of, there's a possibility that you may be over-serving.
Yeah,
People are getting into accidents and claiming they're coming from your establishment.
yeah, I read this through, and from what I can understand, the person was arrested at 3 o'clock in the morning, at 8 minutes of 3, was the report time. Was the first thing, and there's no way they came directly from my establishment. No customers are in there after 1, and actually, again, I called today just because it popped into my head. I called the alarm company, I have motion sensors in the bar. My alarm was set at 1:32. I'm telling you that they're out at 1. Assuming he stayed there till the very last minute and stepped out the door at 1, it's still 2 hours later that the person did it. And it wasn't even him that claimed that was there, it was a woman in the car that wasn't arrested or anything, that said it was there. It wasn't the individual that was actually arrested for OUI. If they were there, and I'm not disputing they were there, but they were out by 1, they went and did something for 2 hours. I Googled up the person's name on the internet and found out that person has a history of maybe not doing the right thing. So there was something else going on here between the falling asleep, standing up and everything. I think that's indicative of something else. And, I mean, I can prove that nobody, I'm telling you, there was nobody there after 1. I can tell you there wasn't a moving body in the bar after 1:30. So we're talking almost 2 hours later that the person was there. And the person, so that makes the person who made the statement that was disingenuous, and she said they had just left there at 3. Came directly from there, so that already proves that the person who made the statement that were there is not being truthful, because they couldn't come directly from there. It's a 5-minute ride from the bar to Parkland Ave.
Do you know these individuals?
I know one of them. I know the male. He used to actually, we only actually used to see him on Tuesday nights, and I was kind of surprised because he shot in a dark team out of the place.
Yeah.
And one thing I look for is people's patterns changing, some in the day, coming at night, some at night. That's usually some sign of something's not too good. And I think, I'm not saying he wasn't there, but I think I would have noticed him because I know who he is. And to see him there on a Saturday night would be very unusual. I don't, like I said, I honestly don't believe, even if they were in the place, they went somewhere else, it's a 2-hour time gap, and did something. And to be falling asleep standing up, I think it's kind of clear the kind of things that lead to that, so.
So, well, we asked you to come in and just make you aware of what's going on.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Word to the wise, if you know this person, I wouldn't.
No, he will not be in my establishment again, I promise you that. Okay, and like I said, we're very careful about that, I haven't had, those guys all the time of, they're doing this, and, yeah, so.
I just have a question. When you came in right after you opened, you had a little problem, or something rather.
Right.
Who spoke to you then about not using the parking, not community parking?
Yeah, I've got that closed off, I'm not using it, I've got the plan submitted to the ABCC.
You were using it up until not that long ago.
What happened was the officers came in, the band, I can't serve liquor on it, but I can use it as a storeroom and so forth, I'm paying rent on the place, I can use it for other purposes. When the band came in, they loaded through that thing and I left the door open, and I wasn't aware of it, but when the officers came in, there was nobody in there. The door was open that night, I'm not disputing that, but we weren't doing that. I submitted the paperwork to the ABCC, what held me up was, every architect I talked to wanted almost $3,000 to do a draw plan. I just found out that I could probably have the person that did it before do it for me, because they did it however many years ago. And then there was a financial issue that kept me from getting that floor plan. Did you ever get-
I hope so, because I haven't been in there, I didn't see anything firsthand, but I go by there a lot, and it certainly looked to me like you were using it.
I have the light on in there sometimes, if I'm in the storeroom and so forth, you can see the light from the street. I mean, I'm in the process right now, it was a financial issue that held me up, it was a lot of money, because it was told originally I need to have an architect do it, and I don't want it. $2,500 to $3,000 to add a room to the floor plan. I guess they're gonna let me now, just have the person who did it before, who signed the earlier one, sign off it. Now that the financial issue's out of the way, I'm moving forward on all of it. I'm gonna bring a copy down to the ABCP paperwork for clerk, and then I've got it filled out, I had to print it out and send it to Salem, because you can't sign on and do it online, but I'm moving forward on all of that.
You know you got a couple more reports coming in next?
I know of at least one, but I have a copy to look them over.
No, you'll get copies after we decide what to do with them.
Well, I asked what they're about, which,
We
I
have-
know one of them is for sure, and discussed it as a police are on it, I don't know what the other one is.
We'll review them at the end of the meeting, and if we decide to go forward, you'll get copies of them.
Okay, all right. Anything else? No, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, and then we have continued hearing on the Blancas. Okay, we have a report of disorderly conduct, and we have a second letter complaint from the neighbors. And again, just the lack of management and control and prior history.
Well, I'll just point out is the report is October 20th.
Exactly.
Just that period of time, I checked with your secretary, there's been no further to this report. You remember correctly, last time we were in October, related to the board, number of things. One was use more security officers, which hasn't been for that. Second was to rent the parking lot across the street, so not to infringe on the rights of the apartment house with their parking rights. And the third was to soundproof the inside, the was not, I think that was checked out by, I believe the lieutenant went down to the location and verified that. And since then, we haven't had any problems with the neighbors, I don't think. If you take a look at that letter states, if you have any questions, contact me at the above reference number. It's all above reference number. Well, we haven't had any further incidents. And relative to the reported question, the incident occurred outside the bar. It was their officer who was in the bar looking at details. The incident occurred outside. What they relayed to me was no people from inside the bar were involved. Passers by, etc. The security officer went out there and helped the on-duty police officer, so far as subduing the individuals. And I would just reiterate that since October 20th, there have been no further reports to the board, as far as I've been able to ascertain. And it's not a good luck.
I would just say that, I don't know if there's anybody here from the
Yes,
Olympia Square Housing.
Yeah.
I've spoken to people at the Olympia Square Housing about in regards to the noise and the traffic, and some concerns about their property and around their lots, property around the barn. And I told them that it would be here for them to be able to comment on it. So if there are people here, it's.
Maybe having no questions for Attorney Nyhol, okay, then I think we're gonna hear from the tenants. Yeah, yeah.
It's still just as bad.
November 6th.
November 6th, yep. You have a copy of that. Is this you?
Well, no, this
No,
is-
it's you, okay, I spoke to you, okay.
I know, the security.
You've seen no improvement at all?
No, still have the same tenants, still registering the same complaints.
Occurred at particular times.
They said the music is very loud, from Friday, Saturday, Sunday nights. They have karaoke, and it's very loud. And they have called the police, because I advised them, I posted it all over the building to call the police each time. And,
Please come, the music goes down, please leave, the music goes right back up, is what they tell us.
Everybody's seen the letter?
I haven't seen that many reports from, that tenants call. I've been mostly talking to the community liaison officers, Sergeant Dunnigan, and communicating with management people over here. I have gone by there so that there's no, my officers are working on plainclothes capacity. They routinely go by these places, in particular Mama Blanca's, so that they're not gonna turn it down because they don't know we're here. I will speak on the fact that, I don't live right next to it, but I haven't heard a lot of music. Now, I know there's music going on, and if I were to stand there maybe next to the wall or next to that building, it may certainly be unreasonable. But I know that they were working with it, and that's all I can say to it. The people that live right next to it, certainly the ones that would be able to give the best story to the board as far as how unreasonable noise is.
I think it's mostly the people on the first floor, and fortunately, we only have 3 apartments on the first floor. Deb usually handles it, she's the resident service coordinator. The only reason I got involved was because when a tenant came and told me about the gentleman friend who was accosted, and that's when I stepped in. Quite frankly, I haven't heard a lot since the letter. A little disappointed that management never contacted me. I would have hoped we could have, established some sort of friendly relationship. If things are happening, I'd go and say, this is happening, we've not come here at night. In Deb's position, the tenants who go to her with complaints. But since I wrote this letter, I usually, apart from Pedro, who's out of the country right now, it bothers him the most is the parking area. He's out of the country right now, otherwise he would have been here, because I do see him coming to Deb all the time, after every weekend. And, it's hard for us, we don't know what to tell him. He's an elderly person, he and his wife are trying to sleep, and, from 9 o'clock on, it's just boom, boom, boom. And I understand, you wanna have, music, I get that, but I don't know that it has to be that loud. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I think you can have a drink and dance and enjoy yourself if it's not so crazy loud.
And then I heard there was a big fight there this past weekend. I whether it's true, I don't live in the
I
area.
don't have
so-
anything
Yeah.
on that.
You
Didn't
don't.
Right.
see that.
I just need to know, is this the exact copy of the letter that you sent to
Yes, that's what I wrote.
Mama Blanca
Yeah.
on this letterhead?
Yes.
Because we didn't get it on letterhead, so I didn't know if they did or not.
We didn't get a
Oh.
letter back.
It should have been on letterhead. A lot of times when I send copies, I don't bother
Yeah,
using letterhead.
yeah, so I'm wondering if they didn't get the letterhead
It's the
because they
same
didn't have it.
exact letter.
It's the same letter, but it does say you can contact you at the above number, and there was no number.
Okay, well, he knows who we are.
Right,
next
now,
door.
yeah,
Okay,
Yeah.
I apologize for
Yeah.
that.
No, I'm just saying. Yeah, that was gonna be my next suggestion.
Okay.
We could just try to engage with amongst yourselves and see what,
I can't believe I sent that letterhead. I would normally not ever
Yeah.
send a letter without letterhead.
Just one other suggestion, if I can, and if it continues to be a problem, we certainly want to help you, all of us. What you can do to help us, you have to be very specific to us and to the police of our violations. You keep a log or whatever, specific dates and times and incidents and what happened.
That's a good idea.
Because these people have a license, and if we take action against them, they certainly have the right to defend it, you
Right,
understand that?
I get that.
So that would be a big help to all of us to do what you can do.
I have been doing that, and each time someone comes with a complaint, I ask them, even if they didn't call a moment, call and log it, because that's the only way they can do anything.
But you can keep your own laws too,
Yeah.
about what
Yeah,
goes on.
yeah, I do.
Difficult for us to work with generalized statements.
I'll get the number from,
okay.
It's
Debbie.
it's not on this
Okay.
notice, it's not on this notice, but the entertainment license can be
And we understand.
altered also in regard to this if it continues to be a problem. So I think it behooves everyone to work out.
Well, we try to resolve, to respond to it, like soundproofing and work.
Motion to accept the files.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Good to meet you.
Don't come back.
I wouldn't want to see you again.
No, because that's, yeah, well, no, we didn't, because, Attorney Vitale, you are handling the new license for Inca Tula?
Yes.
Okay, that we skipped over it because you were in conference,
Okay.
but
All right. I'll get that.
are you still in conference, or?
No, I think, I'll come back to that.
Okay.
Either two,
Oh,
So,
no, that was,
we'll
yeah.
settle that. Okay. Settle.
Yes.
Yeah.
We're gonna do that one now?
Yeah, wanna?
Split dates.
Yeah.
This is Norma.
Right?
They operate a successful restaurant business in Marblehead on Smith Street. If you're familiar with Marblehead, Smith Street's where the post office is. My wife lives there. They've been in business there for a period of time. They want to operate a Mexican restaurant on the Lynn Way at a site that's been previously approved for all kinds of things. I mean, it's known to Lynn is as like the old McDonald's.
Mm-hmm.
They have been TIPS approved, they have experience, and they formed this entity to operate a restaurant, not a nightclub, not a bar, but a restaurant. And they've been successful, and they brought along a menu. So I think I gave a smaller version of that to Debbie earlier. And this is what they serve now in Marblehead on Smith Street. This is what they intend to serve if they were approved for the sale of alcohol and a restaurant license here on the Lynn Way. And again, hardworking people, family business, no problems that I'm aware of in Marblehead. And they saw an opportunity to come to Lynn. I will tell you that I've had other people approach me who are national chains who have done demographics and say that this kind of food has great appeal in the city of Lynn. And the favored locations are either along Boston Street or along the Linway, and so when this came available, they jumped at the chance.
Well, it's good, we're glad you're coming.
Yeah.
I like weird.
That's the end of it.
Yeah.
That's the end of it.
That's good. I mean, yeah, I'll make my motion to approve.
I know a great hot sauce too.
Yeah.
I'm writing you down.
He's just trying to sell something.
What time the hours? The hours, I'm sorry, what are the hours? Good question.
I think we listed.
Yeah.
I don't,
Yeah.
I didn't
Seven
get it.
days a
I
week.
did.
Excuse me? 11 to 11.
Right, that's it.
Yeah.
No entertainment though, right? Just all restaurant. I don't think
TVs,
I'll play.
things like that? You gonna have televisions?
Oh, yeah.
That qualifies under entertainment. so.
Yeah.
Sam knows that.
No disco.
Sounds good.
Fine.
You need a second.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
No, what was the guy's name down there? No.
Oh, yeah.
Going,
Okay.
what was the name of that place? All the lights.
Yeah, no.